We finally got another patch for Heroes of the Storm. This time it's a balance patch. Getting ready for, I think, the Deathwing patch coming next week, so that's really exciting. Now, the bulk of the changes appear to have come to Zagara. She's received a lot of changes, and some are buffs, some are technically nerfs, but let's just go right through them. So, the first of the changes is to a talent called Volatile Acid at level 1. It no longer increases baneling damage against non-heroic targets, but instead will increase the baneling damage by 20%. So, here we will send a baneling towards a hero, and that does 226 damage with the level 1 talent, and then if we shoot it at these guys, they will also do 226 damage as well. So that's why it is going to be the same. You're no longer doing increased damage against non-heroic units, you're now doing increased damage against everything. It's probably a bit of a nerf towards the sieging aspect, but that's okay, it's still useful overall. The next change is going to go to Corpse Feeders, and no longer reduces roachling damage against non-heroic sources. That's kind of written incorrectly. What it basically means is that roachlings are no longer tankier against non-heroic sources specifically. They are now tankier overall. The increase of the health of roaches is now at 30%. So if we were to summon a roach at level 20, the roach at the moment has 720 health. If we were to use Corpse Feeders, it immediately jumps to 936 health because that apparently updates at real time. So if we just have a look there, 936 health as opposed to 720. Yeah, and finally there's a change to Infest, just a slight bonus. The initial damage bonus for ranged minions increased from 100% to 125%. So you still do an additional 1% extra damage for every 1000 siege damage. That remains to be the same. It's just that the amount that you start off with is up by 25%. So I guess it just makes it a little bit stronger. Overall, it's more or less the same. At level 4, there is only one change, and that is to Serrated Spines. Serrated Spines is no longer giving you 0.3 flat damage for every attack you do against this hero. You are now only getting 0.2% of your attack damage, which of course will scale as your attack damage increases with every level. Essentially what this means is that early game this is going to be a bit of a weaker talent, but late game it's going to be a lot stronger. So for example, if you happen to be at level 8 and you get 40 hits, let's say it's a particularly intense game, you're getting 40 hits off your basic attacks against enemy heroes, then at level 8 Zagara's attack damage is currently 116.4. So if you had the old talent, you would have an additional 12 damage flat bonus from hitting enemy heroes 40 times. Now you only get 8% of your 116.4 damage, so that only comes up to an additional 9.28 damage. So early game it was 12 damage, now it's going to be 9.28 damage, but late game if you happen to get 100 hits, that actually becomes a huge bonus. So let's jump up to our level 20.
Choose a talent.
Zagara has 186.4% damage. If she had the old talent, she would have 30 extra damage, but if she has this new talent, she now has 20% of 186.4 damage. That becomes 37 damage. So it does become stronger in the late game. At level 7, there is only one change, and that is to Baneling Massacre. Again, at level 1, Baneling Massacre will no longer have that damage bonus because that's being taken over by the level 1 talent for Volatile Acid. Instead, it will now reduce the charge cooldown of Banelings by half a second, and frankly, this is what Baneling Massacre should have been from the beginning. The fact that it only gave additional charges was kind of meaningless in my opinion. Now that it gives a cooldown reduction on the Banelings, that is like a much better talent in my opinion. So if you have a look on the bottom left, or if you have a look at the bottom, that is the cooldown for Banelings. It is a 3-second cooldown. As soon as you take Baneling Massacre, it is a 2.5 second cooldown, and that is a lot faster. And when you have 6 Banelings, this is how long it takes to get all of those Banelings back. It'll take 15 seconds. It'll take 15 seconds to get all of your Banelings back. Obviously, a lot shorter if you have Nidus Network, which I will always take. Even with the changes at level 10, which is to Devouring More, simply mana cost reduced by 30, damage increase from 88 to 94. Honestly, I still don't really care. I think Nidus Worm is still a whole lot better. So at level 13, there are no changes. We'll just skip right ahead to level 16. Now, level 16 has received quite a lot of changes, and this will be the final level. There was no changes to level 20. Corrosive Saliva is now a lot different. It actually buffs Hydralisks and Roaches. So in order to make sure that the power scale of this is not too hilariously overtipped, the damage has been reduced from 2% to 2.5% rather to 1.75% across the board of enemy health. Hydralisks no longer do as much damage, but instead now Roaches do more damage. So at level 20, how fast can my Roaches and my Hydralisks kill this Asmodan at level 20 with Corrosive Saliva? Or rather, in one cycle, Asmodan has lost almost all of his health. So basically, in one cycle, if I were to also basic attack him with, let's say, 100 stacks, which is a very reasonable amount, I actually achieve that quite often as Zagara, then in one cycle of Roaches and Hydralisks, I can actually kill Asmodan.
Strike.
That was easy. Now, the thing is, Brood Expansion, which was the cooldown reduction for Hydralisk, deleted. Instead, that is now added to Mutalisk. Because the Mutalisk now has that cooldown reduction, it means that you get to choose whether or not you want to siege a lot more or if you want to actually do a lot more damage. If you want to have a lot more stronger summons, you choose Corrosive Saliva. If you want to have a lot better siege, you choose Mutalisks. So having chosen Mutalisk at level 16, now let's have a look at how well the siege can work. So the cooldown used to be 16 seconds, it is now 12 seconds, so that makes it a lot faster to get your Hydralisk. Our Brood expansion was also this level, so that's kind of what has happened here. And because Mutalisks last a lot longer, you essentially get to have way more Mutalisks out on the field at any given time. So we can actually get up to 4 Mutalisks out on the field if we are constantly attacking, which will definitely increase our damage against buildings, for example.
Mayhem. Fort shattered.
Of course, if you want to heal with Mutalisks, you actually have to order them to attack a hero directly. The bounce attacks still do not heal you, but definitely with this change you can now spawn up to 4 Mutalisks at once on the map, simply because of the extended duration that Mutalisks already have, and now with the additional cooldown reduction you can easily get a lot of Mutalisks all out on the field. But when you summon your fourth one, your first one is about to disappear. Can't summon the next one. Unless you have Anna on your team, in which case she can always supercharge you with Nano Boost, and then you can summon probably a lot more than 4. You might be able to get 6. I don't know. We'll need to see. So finally at level 16 there is one more talent. It is a new talent. It is called Jagged Barbs. While on creep, Zagara gains 30% more basic attack damage and her attack range is increased by an additional 10%. So what's interesting about this is because Zagara gains 30% more basic attack damage by sitting on creep, if you couple this with Serrated Spines, then essentially you get 150 stacks of Serrated Spines by standing on creep, because you get 30% basic attack damage. This one, in my opinion, is not going to be as useful for me. Certainly would fit with the way I play, in the sense that I like to use a lot of creep, especially with Nidus Worm and Endless Creep. That is obviously super duper strong, but the fact that it's competing with Mutalisk and Corrosive Saliva, I mean, obviously, if you decide to take this Jagged Barbs talent along with Protective Coating and Serrated Spines, you have a pretty deadly combo, so that is something worth looking into. Or, alternatively, you could decide to do a Jagged Barbs plus Medusa Blades talent, and that could be very, very interesting in the way of the siege. So with Medusa Blades and Jagged Barb, you can see that we are doing 242 damage as we should be. That's basically 30% extra damage, and the Medusa Blades are also doing some extra damage, so that is a very interesting way to conduct your siege, especially late game, if you need to kill a lot of minions, and if you decide to choose Medusa Blades earlier, then definitely go for Jagged Barbs is going to be an interesting choice. For comparison, if you're not standing on creep, you're only doing this much damage, so clearly, Jagged Barbs and Medusa Blades could be an interesting combo to choose if you want to actually go this way. Personally though, I don't see myself doing this. I think in the end, I'm still going to pick something like Corrosive Saliva or Mutalisk. I just love using my summons. I mean, that's just kind of how that's just my philosophy with Zagara. She is a summoning queen. She is a Zerg queen. I want a Zerg rush. I don't want to be like another Vala. But if you think that you want to play like this might end up being a stronger way. I don't know, we'll see. But that's just how I feel about Jagged Barbs. So that is the might of the new Zagara. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. If you like this hero, hit that like button, subscribe for more Heroes of the Storm action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!